Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie every week and discuss it just like a book. On today's show, we are covering the iconic horror classic, The Exorcist. So our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1973, The Exorcist was directed by William Friedkin and stars Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, and Linda Blair. When a young girl is possessed by a mysterious entity, her mother seeks the help of two Catholic priests to save her life. It is currently ranked number 225 on IMDb's Top 250 and currently has a 4.0 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It won 2 Oscars for Best Sound and Best Adapted Screenplay. It was nominated for 8 more Oscars, including Best Editing, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Supporting Actor for Jason Miller, Best Supporting Actress for Linda Blair, Best Actress for Ellen Burstyn, Best Director, and Best Picture. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. We will be discussing plot points, twists, turns, revelations, and so much more here on the show, and we don't want to spoil it for you. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go over to wherever it's playing. Right now, I believe it's playing on HBO Max, and watch the film, and then come back here if you don't want to spoil it for yourself. But stay tuned to the end of the show to see what movie we have coming next, so you can watch it before the next show. Alrighty, so Kevin, this week is a big one. The Exorcist, one of the biggest horror films of all time, if not maybe one, like the top 3 biggest horror films of all time that kind of everyone knows about, even outside of the horror genre. What's your history with The Exorcist?
This is a rewatch for me. I think I've watched it a couple of times, but it was good to go back on it because I didn't remember the first part of this whole movie. So it was good to go back onto it.
Sure thing, yeah. And I had actually I had never actually really seen it, and I did a first watch of it, I want to say 2 years ago. I think it was during the podcast era of Real Watchers, back when it was the drive back, and absolutely loved it. Don't know why it took me so long to watch it. Probably because I was only really into horror movies kind of recently, as you know, after meeting our friend Nadia, who's gotten me into them more and more. Yeah, I think this movie has more than earned its reputation as being one of the most well-known and probably best crafted horror films of, Western cinema, I guess you could say, because it's the one that everyone holds everything else up against, right?
Yeah, demon possessions, number 1 is The Exorcist. That's what you have to beat, and normally you can't beat it, and it's 40 years old, 45 years old already?
It is 50 years old this year.
50 years old, and no one has beaten it yet. So that's how good this movie is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of movies try, and not even itself can beat itself. We just saw The Exorcist Believer come out, which this is coming right on the heels of, and that movie is pretty much flopping in terms of reception. I both critics and fans don't really seem to really enjoy it as much as I guess the studios were hoping, and they haven't really hit anywhere near the same level. So definitely an interesting thing to talk about before diving into the movie. So one of my favorite parts about this movie that I do want to talk about first and foremost is that it takes, arguably, for the most part, it takes the logical approach to a possession. I can't think of another movie that has a possession in it or some sort of supernatural event where they're consulting with doctors and scientists for like the first hour and a half of the movie, and it still works. Like it's brilliantly paced in that regard. Do you agree on that?
I do agree, because you wouldn't go straight to an exorcist or straight to an exorcism if something is wrong with your child. You would go to you do the clinical stuff first, then you go into psychiatric, and then if that doesn't work, that's when you would call for help from the church and stuff like that. And even the church is like, we need proof that this is an exorcist, pretty much. So it's tests on tests on tests, and then you finally get results, pretty much.
Yeah, and arguably, if something like this is happening to your child, you should seek medical or scientific help, because it's most likely something to do with their brain. So, because more often than not, that's what it is. But again, I think for me, You know, like I think we had talked about this. I think on one of Nadia's videos, like someone had brought up that you can't enjoy this movie if you're not religious, right?
You
And I
can
don't think
definitely
that's
enjoy this movie.
yeah. Like I am the furthest thing from Catholic that there could possibly be, and I love this movie, right? And I think a lot of that is because the mother, Ellen Burstyn, takes that rational approach. Like it's clearly something, she's sick, or it might be something to do with a mental health issue, and like she exhausts all these logical, rational options before going, you know, the supernatural route, the mystical route, so to speak.
Exactly. And did you watch the extended cut version, or when you first watched it, or just the one that's streaming?
I have only seen the standard version, I guess you could say. I do now own the recent 50th anniversary 4K edition, which I believe has the extended director's cut on it. So as we get closer to Halloween, it was probably going to be one of the films that I rewatched, and specifically the director's cut, or the director's edition.
You should watch the director's editions, because there's some parts that are actually makes it even a better movie that they don't have it streaming. They cut some scenes out, which I don't want to tell you. Maybe you know. If you do know, just say something. But it makes Reagan a better demon, pretty much, which is, and they don't show it in this HBO Max version of it. So I had to go online and take a look at it. So I don't want to spoil anything because I want you to watch it.
Yeah, this is kind of the one instance where I'm going to say, please don't, because I haven't actually, I want to see it and I don't want it kind of spoiled for me. But like on that topic though, let's talk Linda Blair. Obviously, she's got the Oscar nomination for this for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, nomination.
Very well deserved.
Nomination. I think she could have won that.
I mean, I want to check out and see what The Exorcist actually, what won that year.
Yeah.
Just because I'm so curious. Yeah, like it's probably someone from a movie that no one's ever heard of, but you know, we'll figure it out. Best Supporting Actress went to Tatum O'Neal for the movie Paper Moon. A movie that I haven't heard of. Arguably, could be a very good movie and a very good performance. It is noted here that Tatum O'Neal won this award at age 10.
So Linda Blair was 12, right? I
believe so. Right around there. So Tatum O'Neal is the youngest winner ever in a competitive category. Which is... Okay. Oh boy, that's crazy. Yeah, and all the other performances are ones that are never really just talked about. But I think that's the key, though. And like when we talk about Oscar snubs, and we're kind of getting off point of The Exorcist here. When we talk about Oscar snubs, it's always when it's a movie that hasn't come out in the last 20 years. I think in the last 20 years of the Oscars, it's pretty easy to go, yeah, The Dark Knight should have won Best Picture. Or, you know, or there's the easy one, right? Saving Private Ryan should have beaten Shakespeare in Love. It's like, it's one of the worst omissions in, you know, Academy history. We look at Linda Blair's though, and you really see that like in hindsight, right? Because the performance was really good for its time, but now it's reached iconic status. So it's kind of reached that point where like, how could it have not? You know, it's kind of like the same with 12 Angry Men, right? When 12 Angry Men didn't win almost all the Oscars it was nominated for, yet we both look at it and we're like, this is a perfect movie. How did it not win? It's always in hindsight. It's always like so much further after the fact that it's already become iconic and it's reached that status.
Exactly, yeah.
Which just makes it kind of hard to judge kind of past winners. But back on topic, Linda Blair is incredible in this movie, and it's her performance physically, because it's not her voice when she's talking as Pazuzu, right? But her physical performance, even before the possession sequences, is still great. Fantastic, even. In one of the better, I would say, lead, and she's not the lead character, but one of the lead performances in a horror movie ever.
Correct. Yeah. She's just her actions make the demon more powerful. She's not a supporting actress. She's a supporting demon in this movie. One can say, um, but yeah, the way that she just ins- I don't know, she like inspired that movie. Like to me, if you don't have a Linda Blair, like who, why would you watch this movie? Is my
It
take.
it was probably one of those cases where, you know, they were doing the casting call and they're like, no, that's it. Because if you don't know, The Exorcist is based off of a book.
Hmm.
So this isn't an original film. It is based off of a pre-existing story. So the character of Reagan already existed. It was just a matter of finding the person to fill those shoes.
Hmm.
And I wish I would have been in the room for her, like her audition, because like that moment where you go like, nope, that's who it is. Like
Hmm.
that's our Reagan. Like that is the moment I wish I could go back in time and see among
Yeah.
many casting decisions. Also, the casting room for like Heath Ledger as the Joker. I mean,
Oh
you don't want to have been in there, right? Like, that
no,
would have been sweet.
that would have been
But
awesome.
you know, brilliant decision. And kind of piggybacking off that, Ellen Burstyn, who plays her mother, also incredible.
Hmm.
A very
Also,
believable parent performance in a possession horror movie.
yeah. Hmm. I mean, like you said in the beginning, taking all the right steps before going to the church, pretty much that's what you would do as a mother and as a parent. You would rule everything out first before you go seek something else.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's what makes the performance and the character so much more interesting to watch and very kind of relatable to the lead character in Rosemary's Baby, right? Like, again, a very believable performance, grounded, not like today where you kind of have people in a lot of these possession movies where they just kind of they know what's going on, you know,
Hmm.
like they act like they don't know, like, oh, what's wrong with you, baby? And then they always go down the route of, oh, it's gotta be a possession, you
Hmm.
know, or they try and do something similar to the mother, but it comes off as disingenuous, or they go the complete opposite route. You know,
Hmm.
I'm a pretty hardcore skeptic and non-believer when it comes to these kinds of things. But when I've exhausted every other option,
Hmm.
and there's like I don't know what I would do, right?
Yeah.
But then you have characters in some of these movies who are just like so staunchly like, you know, like it's just kind of pathetic, really. But
Yeah.
like that's where they tread the fine line with her in this film.
Yeah. And I liked it too because the film keeps going on, and she's realizing that okay, something's not wrong with her, something is inside of her, and you can realize it every single time she goes to a clinic or a specialist and stuff like that. And then that's when she goes to the church and it's like, no, something's wrong, this just doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense, pretty much.
And lesser movies that come out today, and the one I'm thinking of most recently is Possession or The Possession, where the possessed child is taken to like a clinic or a hospital, and they
Hmm.
actually see the thing on like CAT scans and stuff.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it's scarier when you don't see it, and
Yeah.
that's what makes the whole hour and a half of this movie, where she's, you know, in these clinics or with doctors or with scientists, scarier because you
Hmm.
don't see it until it comes to the forefront of her
Yeah, exactly.
when
Until it
she transforms.
basically when she becomes Pazuzu, pretty much, and
Yeah,
that's when it starts. And I would like to talk about the beginning of this movie.
sure.
Dang, did I not remember what the heck was going on in the beginning of this movie? I thought it started right away. It does not. It's we're going to Egypt to get an ancient relic or something like that,
Well, you
and
know what they find, right?
it's a little relic, right?
No, the giant statue of Pazuzu.
That makes sense now.
Did you not know that?
No, I did not know
So
that.
literally, the statue that the priest finds in the beginning is like you don't know what it is, you just know it's bad, right? Because it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
look
yeah, yeah.
human. But then
Uh-huh.
later on, when like Reagan's in bed and she's like this, and you see that statue in the background and the light filtering over it onto her, it's
Mm,
Pazuzu. That's
okay.
why that priest has a connection to that demon.
God. Okay. See, that now makes damn sense now. And like you were saying before too, when they don't show the demon as often, when I think it's the mom that's having the dream, or somebody's having a dream, and Pazuzu just shows up, just one one take like this. That's all you need to show half the time,
That
because
iconic little face.
yeah,
Yeah.
and most people didn't even realize that it was there because they blink and they miss it. So
Yeah, kind of like a jump scare without the fanfare, right? Like it's
exactly.
just there and it's not. And if you're paying attention, you see it. I remember the first time watching the movie, I didn't see it.
Oh,
And I was watching a video afterward of someone talking about it, and I saw the clip, and I was like, wait a minute, and I rewound it on HBO.
uh-huh.
And I was like, wait, whoa.
Yeah, but see, that's what's nice about it. It's like, here's the demon. That's all we're gonna give you, though.
Yeah.
It's not gonna come out. It's not gonna be a main part in the third act. It's still focusing on the little girl.
And I haven't, at the time of recording this, I haven't seen Exorcist Believer yet, right? Like, lesser films will show you the demon.
Yeah.
It'll show you in some form. In this one, we just get the face. That's it.
We don't get the body, we get the statue. As some people will say,
Yeah.
well, that's Pazuzu as well. Yeah, we get the statue, but we get that
It's
one
a
shot.
representation. It's not the
Yeah.
actual demon itself.
And representations are fine though. Like in like the I haven't seen the Babadook, but I guess the Babadook's based on a book that in the movie, and it's okay to see the demon in a book, but don't always show him in the movie walking around and stuff like that. Make it subtle.
Or for the right moment.
Yeah.
Like, there is something to be said about showing something at the proper moment. But that proper moment is only if you create it. And this movie does not have the proper moment to show a demon in its full entirely. Also,
It doesn't need to.
1973. What are you going to do except for, a guy in a suit? Like,
Yeah.
there's no way to do it convincingly. And I think just doing the face is more than enough.
And the thing is too, it's not a distorted like devil face. It's a human face with sharp teeth and like cheeky cheekbones, like very pronounced. So it's not like, oh my gosh, that looks like a demon or something like that. It's just a regular face with a good makeup. That's all it is.
And I think that's the part was so, like, in theory for me is so scary, right? Like, it's just makeup. So to me, that says, oh, that's not even its real look. That's what it's just putting on. It's putting it on like makeup to show itself like that. And I feel like that is so much more scary of an idea, right? Like, you don't get to see everything. You get to see just what I want you to see.
Exactly.
Like,
and that,
which is that's so much more of a power move.
yeah, it's like, here we're gonna say this demon's name, but you only get to see him for this split second. That's all you get.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such a brilliant move. In a movie full of them, right? Like, the movie was the first one that I know of to be a possession movie where someone goes, "Take me instead," right? And then, instead of just like making that the premise for what a sequel could be or whatever, they have the guy immediately in control of himself jump out the window.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, for the 70s, that's pretty dark. And what I think a lot of people overlook is that this movie, and obviously it came out during the 70s, and this is before the Great Satanic Panic. This is before, this is kind of like at this point where we're just outside of like the Hays Code. So like, this is pretty dark. Like, we had Texas Chainsaw Massacre would come out 2 years later, I think, after this. And so this was pretty much like as far as we know, the classic, not even a classic, like the silver, like the second golden age of Hollywood. This is like the first major horror movie that came out.
Yeah.
And it really just sets a lot of those foundations, and it does it beautifully. Also, let's talk about visual effects, man.
Yeah.
When you can walk into a room and your breath is showing, like, to be able to portray that on screen is so cool. And I think this movie does it better than any other. Because I think any other movie would just show CG of like frost on the door handle or like, like, oh, Sub-Zero was here,
Yeah.
kind of effect. But this movie, I think it's because it's made during the 70s and you have some more of a resourcefulness when it comes to its visual effects. It feels more real.
Yeah, it does. And then the makeup as well looks real as well, especially on Linda Blair and everything like that. It looks like it just looks incredible. You can't dupe that in CG these days because of how much craftsmanship is in that.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think one of the cool things about this movie though is it's at the point, like, it is a scary film, but it is not like too scary, right? Like, this is a good foundational horror movie. Like, if you've kind of, you've been wanting to watch something a little bit scarier, I feel like The Exorcist is probably something that a lot of people who don't watch a lot of horror movies could watch this on Halloween and get a good enough scare out of it, to really kind of make the most of it. But I feel like, especially now in 2023, so many people are more grounded, they're more rational, they're more logical. And so you watch a possession movie and you're kind of like, yeah, that's not actually going to happen. But this is the closest it probably looks like to something that could happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, what sells that movie for people, especially nowadays. I mean, we watch a lot of possession movies that come out nowadays, and they are, like, not even a fraction as good as this movie.
No,
and so it's just refreshing to go back and watch it.
It is. And then, but like you were saying, like, beginning or looking into getting into horror, like, these older movies are really good into getting into horror because they are older, so they're about them a lot better. And you have, like, Halloween in this one as well. Is it a scary jump scare movie like we'll get nowadays? No, it's a continuous eerie scary movie, and that's what this is as well. So if you want to jump on the horror bandwagon, just watch some older critically acclaimed horror movies like these,
the ones that have transcended time, like the ones that were made back when artisans and, like, auteurs were making these movies. William Friedkin was already a respected director in Hollywood before he made this, and it was seen as kind of a step down. And then the movie came out and everyone changed their opinion. But like, this was established filmmakers. These were people or radical newcomers that were looking to change the game, like with Tobe Hooper and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or Steven Spielberg and Jaws, right? Like, they were really attempting to change the mold by bringing horror to the mainstream.
Yeah.
Nowadays, anyone could make a horror movie. They're probably the cheapest, arguably, movies to make, except for indie dramas, right? So, and they make their money back. So it's like, now they're a little bit more of a money-making machine as they were when The Exorcist came out, when it was like, no, this is for the art of it. And, like, this is a movie that is pushing new ground visually, artistically, and cinematographically wise. Like, it's so refreshing to watch after seeing a lot of the kind of films you get today.
Yeah, it is refreshing to go back on old horror movies too, because it's like you can see that passion that they wanted to basically change people's minds on horror movies. It was like, this is what a horror movie should be like. Don't make it be all about jump scares and stuff like that, which that came on probably during the 90s
and 2000s.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
I guess when you could see, like, the paradigm was starting to shift to a younger age, and they wanted to, like, keep attention. They go for the jump scares, and they kept them faster moving. Like, The Exorcist is what, like, how long is The Exorcist?
2 hours and 13 minutes.
Yeah, like, it's 122 minutes, so it's right around 2 hours. Like, most horror movies nowadays are an hour 20, hour 30. So, like, it clearly speaks to a time when it was more about the story, it was more about the characters, and not so much about scaring the audience. Not to say that all movies that come out these days are bad. I mean, horror is actually having a very good year in 2023, all things considered. But also, like, if you're looking for a movie that's, like, scary but not that scary, I always ask myself the question: would this movie have scared my parents? And if it scares my parents, then I know it's going to be okay. Because like, our standards are so much higher.
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember my dad standing in line for Jaws when it first came out, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He saw that one, and he was petrified at the end of it. And watching it now, I'm like, okay, this is not that bad. Like,
No.
yes, it's scary because they could actually be people like that, but it's like, okay, it's kind of fun at the same time. But he was like pale face, and he's like, yeah, when the guy in the wheelchair got chainsawed and stuff like that, everybody was, oh god, oh.
But like, you think about it, those movies were not common
exactly
back in the 70s, right? You didn't see people getting hacked up with a chainsaw or getting beat on the head with a mallet and hung onto a meat cleaver, or a 12-year-old girl ramming a crucifix into her genitals, and, you know, like in this movie, right? Like, you just didn't see that. And like, then it was because it was in a mainstream film and it was bringing that to the audience, it was starting to shift that paradigm to now it doesn't faze us really, you know, like for better or for worse, you know, like,
yeah,
it doesn't end up really doing anything to phase us.
no, but it's, if you are tired of jump scare movies and you want to take another crack at it, just watch old horror movies. They're always going to be the best. Even Universal monster movies, if you want to start with really old, start with those, then just work your way up pretty much.
Yeah. And honestly, I think a lot of older movies are scarier than a lot of the newer stuff because you can tell that everything's done practically. You can tell everything is done with like artistry behind it, and they actually had to make it. Not that there's no artistry in CGI. Don't take that the wrong way.
Yeah.
But like, it's physically there with the actors, so there's more of a sense of danger, really. And I think that's what is so impressive, especially in black and white movies. I feel like I get scared more by black and white movies than anything else. So,
and I'm also so intrigued by black and white movies because they don't have color, but they tell a colorful story.
Yeah, but you also have to, there's whole, like, the way you do your makeup is radically different for a black and white movie than it is for a color movie, because you have to play to the, you know, the camera more. It's just, it's fascinating. So if you're looking for something scary to watch this Halloween, hey, we're both saying watch The Exorcist. It's pretty darn good. Alrighty, so Kevin, we've reached the end of The Exorcist here. What is your score, and what did you think about it?
So I gave The Exorcist 4.5 stars out of 5 on Letterboxd. I'm gonna say about a 93. Is it my go-to horror movie of Halloween? No, but it might be now. Rewatching it again. Second, third act are absolutely amazing, and Linda Blair deserved that. Was it Oscar?
She got nominated, yeah.
Yeah, but she deserves it. She deserved it.
I also gave the film 4.5 stars out of 5, and I gave it a 94. So we were that close. But I think this movie is, again, it's a masterpiece of early horror, like early mainstream horror, and I think that the movie still demands attention 50 years later. And if you're going to get the opportunity to go see it in theaters, I believe it is playing the director's cut in theaters. Go do it. You'll thank us for it later. We'll wait for your comments down below that you thank us for it. But it's just going to be a really fun experience to go see this in theater. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, any older horror movies that go into theaters, try to see those, because that's what they were made for, the big screen.
So the question now falls to you. What do you think of The Exorcist? We'd love to see what you have to think down below in the comments section. Just remember to be respectful of one another down there. We're watching. Next week, we'll be covering the crime thriller 7. So make sure to watch the film before next week so you are not spoiled. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube at Real Watchers, and follow us on social media everywhere at the same name, Real Watchers. We also have our live stream that goes live every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Movie Club, the show you're watching right now, comes out every Friday. Again, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, keep your eyes on the screen.